Hi, everyone. So today I am so excited to be sitting down and talking to Dr. David James. He is a PhD clinical psychologist. He's a clinical hypnotherapist. He is an author, a three-time author. He's an in-demand speaker, and he's here with us now. Welcome, David.
Hi, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so I had to kind of exhale after your intro because you have a lot of education. You're also an ordained minister. You have a master's in theology. It's a lot of education, but you also have some pretty interesting experience in work. So I wanted to start there. You were a police officer in LA.
I was, yeah, for 15 years.
Wow. Okay. So I was curious. I was going to ask you this before. Did that sort of inspire your education in studying human nature and the mind and behavior, or is that something? What started first?
I grew up and was barely able to graduate from high school. I was not a good student. Um, I was interested in police things. My dad was a police sergeant, sheriff sergeant. And so when I graduated from high school, 6 days later, I was in the army. And before long, I was a military police officer in Germany. And everything that I studied was in preparation for the Sheriff's Academy, so that when I was discharged from the Army, then I could join the Sheriff's Department, and I did. Again, my family, very, very, very blue collar family, had a bias against education, and it was kind of seen more as a trade school that you only went as far up as you needed to.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until I had a profound spiritual conversion while I was a police officer that I began this course of study. And all of a sudden, then things started unfolding for me, and the rest is history.
Do you mind actually talking about that epiphany you had through work?
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
Do you mind talking about what it was that happened to you spiritually at work? That
Well, I had always had a spiritual background. I grew up in the church I was eventually ordained in. And I was always kind of intrigued with the ceremony and the symbolism and the meaning systems behind all of it. Of course, as a kid, I didn't know that at the time. I just knew that I was very attracted to this. Um, so I really was on kind of a parallel track. Did I want to be a police officer, or did I want to be in ministry of some kind? And truth be told, I think my issues with my dad and wanting to please him won out. And so I went into police work, all the while still maintaining a spiritual connection. Again, it was very traditionally religious at the time because I didn't understand much beyond that. So when on the middle of the night on patrol, other guys would be at the donut shop, and it was kind of a pun, but it's true. Go sit in a church and meditate. And then when my call came, I'd go do that. After about 15 years, I was promoting very quickly. I was the youngest narcotics officer and the youngest SWAT commander and the youngest field supervisor. But I found that I wasn't very happy when it came to my heart.
mm-hmm.
Um, and I came to understand that my dad wouldn't care for me one whit more than he did right now. I mean, the limits of our relationship, which were dramatically healed later and really good later. But at that time, his notion that anything I do, if it wasn't in police work, would somehow be a betrayal to the family. So I went ahead and actually took a little bit of a disability retirement. I've worn hearing aids since I was 30 years old because one evening I was on a narcotics raid on a drug dealer's house. And I was the first in on the front door, and it had been booby trapped, and it exploded and blew up on me.
Okay. I didn't know
Yeah,
that about you.
yeah. And so I lost all of my upper frequency hearing. So I've worn hearing aids from one type or another since I was 30 years old. And that whole episode caused me to consider that maybe my life was taking me in a different direction. Maybe the impulse of my heart was moving in a different direction. And so I retired on the disability from the police department.
Mhm.
And having served in and field training and crime scene investigation and patrol, all the things that you do. And I went to seminary back in Ambridge, Pennsylvania. And then I did my last 2 years in Menlo Park, California, right next door to Stanford University. And then I was ordained as an Episcopal priest. And while I was working with people who come for counseling, I realized that I needed to understand more and know more about how the mind worked, how the human heart worked. I mean, I've always been very intuitive, and so that's how I was working. To this day, I'm very intuitive.
Mhm.
We might start with a intention to work with, weight release, for example, or to stop smoking. And I'll put the client into trance, and because I was going with them usually. And all of a sudden I realized that I'm just told child abuse. So I ask about that, and that opens up a whole, for example, another range of experiences. So I went back and got my doctorate in clinical psychology. And while I was still in ministry, and then let me think, in 2010, I left active ministry work and began a psychotherapy practice. Then 3 years into that, and this is how my life builds. One thing leads to the next, which leads to the next, which leads to the next, which leads to the next.
Yeah.
Is that I was really struggling with people's resistance to change. I talked about this in my latest book, and how people, no matter how badly they want to change or they need to change, there's just this resistance, and in traditional talk therapy, the idea is you talk until the resistance dissipates. So somehow you get some kind of insight into why the wall is there between you and what you want to accomplish.
Yeah.
Whereas I began to study hypnosis, and that's much more symptomatic behaviorist approach. And rather than trying to fix the resistance by taking one work out of the wall each time by talking in one session, the next session, we kind of jump over the wall and go right to the symptoms and then kind of go from there. So I went back to the Hypnosis Motivation Institute in Tarzana, California, did a year's clinical fellowship there, graduated from there, and then started this practice, a combination of psychotherapy and hypnotherapy. And that's a very long answer to a very short question.
Well, you answered one of my first questions, and that's, first of all, I was going to ask you, how important do you think it is when you are trying to help people affect change in their lives to deal directly with their subconscious mind?
That is, as we know, as hypnotherapists, we know the subconscious is the powerhouse of the mind. Mm-hmm. When I was in school, they suggested it was an 80-20 split. The subconscious mind was 80% of the mind, and the conscious mind was 20%. In my experience and later research, probably closer to 90-10, even 95-5%. That's how powerful the subconscious mind is.
Yeah.
So learning how to help people access that state is what makes the change, because the conscious mind, of course, we need it. We can't exist without it. We need to drive our cars and conduct interviews and pay our bills and get the kids to school. But those are all conscious mind activities. And in the West here, and I don't mean in Los Angeles, I mean in the Western of our culture, we were not taught to pay much attention to the inner world, to the intuitional world, to the spiritual world. And so, and yet that's where all the change is, in that inner world, right? Mm-hmm. So by helping people understand, that there's resistance to it, and an example, somebody wants to stop smoking, and they come to me and they say, yeah, great, let's stop smoking. Tomorrow I'll stop smoking. Okay, bless you. Let's come back for our next session. Have a great non-smoking day. And so they go home that night and they smoke every cigarette in the pack. Smoke, smoke, smoke. Saying, well, I've been done tomorrow, so I'm going to go out with a bang. Smoke, 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 smoke. And then they go to bed and they wake up in the morning and they go, oh. And they go into the drawer and they find an old pack of cigarettes. They say, I'll start tomorrow. I'll start tomorrow, or stop tomorrow. Well, that's kind of a perfect example of resistance. They want to make change. Their health demands that they make change, but they are smoking is so embedded in their subconscious mind as a practice and as an emotional state that that's where our job is to help them release some of that.
So is that what your reasoning would be behind why people are so resistant to change, is because of these blocks in their subconscious?
Yeah. The subconscious mind, of course, is our emotions, our memories, our intuition, our affective experiences in life. And so that is where the repetitive action eventually becomes lodged, is in the subconscious mind.
Yeah.
Tony Robbins has a great saying. He says that good habits and bad habits are formed the same way, with practice. A practice makes the master.
Right.
So, if you smoke 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cigarettes a day, for example, for a year, you have made quite a impression in the subconscious mind, habitually. So yeah, we have to be able to help our clients see that there's resistance to it. It's not just because people feel so defeated usually.
Mm-hmm.
Very often people come for hypnotherapists thinking, I've tried everything else. My life seems like it's such a failure. And you just help them see, well, no, you're not a failure. And you tried making change out of the power of your conscious mind, your reasoning, your decision-making power, your willpower, your analytical abilities. And that is not what's going to drive the change. The change is getting in touch with your deepest self in the subconscious mind, where those bad habits or thought patterns are dwelling. And then we do some systematic desensitization to those, and then we come out the other side.
It's true. I always tell people the battle between the subconscious and conscious, your subconscious will always win out. So you want to address it first. David, when you have clients who are sort of first-time clients, maybe new to hypnosis, how do you describe to them what it is you do and what hypnosis really is?
There are, it's an interesting phenomenon in the United States, is that many people come to hypnosis. The first experience to hypnosis is usually in some form of stage hypnosis. In a high school auditorium, in a casino, a theater. And on that stage hypnosis, people are barking like dogs and quacking like ducks and taking their clothes off on command. And so that sets up a number of presuppositions already in the mind of the person who's coming to us. And so we have to dispel myths about what hypnosis is and what it isn't, and how, for example, I was trained in stage hypnosis. That's just part of the curriculum. Mm-hmm. And out of 10 people on the stage, maybe 1 or 2 are actually in hypnosis. The rest are up there having a fun time. They discovered. So, we have to dispel myths. That we don't take, that we don't have you divulge secrets to us, that we're not doing some kind of subconscious reprogramming, that but we're not going to change kind of cherished moral beliefs, But our job is to help them understand how they've gotten to where they are. And I don't mean, again, through sessions upon sessions upon sessions of psychotherapy, mm-hmm. but just if you can teach them how the mind works. And when I was in school, it was called the theory of mind. And you explain to them, the conscious, the subconscious, the interactions, and you tell them, the client, that hypnosis is very much a state of focused attention and deep relaxation, and that it's similar to a daydream very often, or coming out of a REM state in sleep. But there's no loss of control, no loss of consciousness. I tell my clients that, matter of fact, that when you learn to use hypnotic techniques and then turn them into self-hypnotic techniques, that's always my goal, is for them to be able to do this for themselves, that they actually gain more power over their mind. They don't lose it.
Absolutely. I am a big advocate of self-hypnosis and empowering clients to take it further. And, like you said, it's finite for me. That's optimal. I don't want to see clients, again and again and again. I don't want to keep the issue alive. And that actually brings me to something. You have this wonderful way of making things very clear and concise. And I should say right now, you've been a great inspiration to my work. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you. You said recently that people are almost addicted to talking about their troubles rather than, let's talk, I want to stretch that point out a little bit. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, I said in my Instagram post that people are addicted to talking about trouble, and we'd be far better served talking about our joys. And what I mean by that is that we all have issues in our life. We all have troubles at times. We all have challenges at times. And like anything else, if you think about your challenges enough, your troubles enough, and you feel victimized by them enough, then that's going to become a pattern in the subconscious mind, a habitual pattern in the subconscious mind. When that's the case, and you feel powerless because of all your troubles, my husband this, my dog that, I can't sleep, I can't stop drinking, you're actually activating the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight system. And that increases cortisol and adrenaline in your body, and keeps you from having any creative ability to solve your problems. You're focused on the problem. So as you learn to relax, as you learn to engage in kind of a positive transference, not clinically, but transferring from the negative focus all the time to a positive focus, then you can begin to rewrite your brain circuitry. So that's why I was trying to communicate with that thought the other day on Instagram.
Yeah, and when you do activate the fight or flight, things can really get embedded because we have those big emotions, and that it creates a memory that then can create a problem. So yeah, that was interesting. I know you deal with pain management and reduction of pain for clients, and do you ever need to explain to them how we can actually reduce and minimize or even make obsolete the pain we have?
Yeah, I talk to them about the mind's relationship to the pain centers in the brain, and how, if we can change the mind's relationship to the pain center and what it's activating, its nervous response, then I often find that we can begin to dial down pain responses. Matter of fact, we don't use, at least I don't use, the word pain very often with people, because that's kind of a loaded word. I have so much pain, or you're going to be in so much pain, or this is going to bring great pain to you, or my pain in my heart. That's such an emotionally loaded word that gets lodged in the subconscious mind. So it seems almost counterintuitive, but we try to talk about discomfort, because everybody has discomfort in life. It doesn't have to be pain. Ram Dass once said, everybody has pain, but everybody doesn't have to suffer. So I'm taking it one step backwards.
Right.
And let's call it discomfort, and let's reintegrate how the mind works with the pain center in the brain, and bring it down. There are desensitization processes, sometimes with clients where you imagine, it's the hand in the ice bucket kind of technique, where you actually can talk them into their hands start to turn blue and freezing.
Yeah.
And then translate that through the body, and that becomes an anesthesia. I have a colleague in Iran, of all places. Iran has an incredibly developed hypnotherapy for medical state treatment. Matter of fact, one of the colleagues there, she's translating my latest book into Farsi so it can be sold in Iran. But his name is Dr. Fadi, Fadhi, and you can find him on Instagram. He does hypnotic anesthesia with heart surgery patients during the heart surgery. He does hypnotic anesthesia with newborns, which we do here in the United States. We do maternal hypnobirthing kinds of things. He does hypnotic anesthesia with brain surgery. He's a remarkable man. And so, it really is changing the mind's relationship to the experience of pain and how it relates to the pain center.
Well, yeah, it's true. Word choice is important. And to sort of, this is sort of in line with that. It's not about pain, but I often say there are no such thing as bad experiences. And now in saying that, I know that there are experiences that can cause trauma. I know there are experiences that can create great sadness, but it's really the experience itself is how we are going to view it. What our mindset is toward. And I think too that no matter where you're at, your mindset can be whatever you want it to be. Now, what do you think about that?
I tell people this, and sometimes you have to be gentle in telling them this, that experience really is only the results of something that's happened before. If a loved one dies, that's an experience, but it's the result of something happening before. Somebody died, and you have all the grieving processes you need to go through. But it's not good or bad. Somebody dies, passes away, and you go into the grieving process. If somebody is trying to get off heroin, I did a lot of work with drug addicts. You have to desensitize the shame process in helping people overcome their addictions, and help them see, this was an action you took using heroin or crack or crystal meth, and you did it over and over again, embedded in the subconscious mind, as well as the physically addicting properties of it. But all you've gotten are the results of your behavior. And there might be social impact to it, criminal impact to it, family impact to it, psychological health impact to it. But there's an old saying, was it Henry David Thoreau? I don't remember. He said, "There's nothing right or wrong. It's only thinking that makes it so."
Right. Yeah. Or a chair is not a chair until thinking makes it so. It's
right. Yeah. I mean, Terence McKenna once said, our world is not what we see it to be, that we're looking at through a particular perceptual lens. And so changing the relationship to the world changes how we see the world too. So, so experience is the result of an activity or something that's happened. So I don't know if that's helpful or not.
Absolutely. Do you want to tell me a little bit about your transpersonal hypnotherapy that you do?
Yeah, this is an emerging field in hypnosis, and certainly not unique to me. But transpersonal hypnotherapy, I'm part of the Transpersonal Hypnotherapy Association, and it really came out of the work of Dr. Carl Jung, a Swiss psychiatrist, who really began to examine the deep unconscious mind. And he found the personal unconscious. He also found that we're connected worldwide to a collective unconscious, which quantum physics then validated 50 years later in the field. And so the hypnotherapy that we're talking about here, transpersonal, is it helps us, or helps our clients connect with impulses and messages and feelings and experiences that are larger than who they are in this moment, in this body. Probably the easy answer that many people are familiar with would be a past life regression.
Yes.
I was doing a special on those recently, and it was a pretty good experience for a number of people. But transpersonal just what it suggests, beyond the thisness of life. The traditional hypnotherapy, like I said, I think the number one reason people come to hypnotherapists in the United States is to stop smoking. The number two reason is to lose weight, because they stop smoking, probably, I don't know. And then number three is kind of spread out across the board, fear of flying, fear of public speaking, wanting prosperity. But the other two are just really profound. And so that's kind of how hypnotherapy developed in the United States. But this whole notion of transpersonal in conjunction with work of Dr. Carl Jung, and now I work with plant medicine, and I can see even different levels of dimensions of the human person, that it helps contextualize our life in the this minute, in the now, and we go from there to develop strategies and practices that support the greater sense of ourself, other than just this little ego.
Now, is this something you do in your retreats? Because I know you run retreats in California as well.
Yeah, not since COVID, but yeah, I do this in the office of my clients. There's a technique called the Interlife Progression, where you take a client into the space between lives. This has to assumes, of course, you believe that there are a number of lives in a very Eastern tradition, and you actually are able to encounter the Akashic record and the agreements you made coming into this life, and then to see how you've lived up to those or not. So that can be done one-on-one in an office setting.
We call that lives between lives in Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Dr. James, thank you so much for taking time out of what I know is a very busy schedule for you. I really appreciate you talking with us today. And is there anything at all you want to leave anyone who's watching with?
Yeah. The next time I have business cards created, I'm going to change my motto. And I've actually got it on my website already, DrDavidJamesHypnosis.com, I think. And that is that whatever the mind creates, it can recreate. Whatever the mind creates, it can recreate. And so I hope that gives all of us the courage to go into the deeper spaces, to encounter the deeper subconscious mind, and make our dreams come true.
I like it, and I second that. I can talk to you about this stuff for hours and hours. And in fact, the last time I was in LA, I tried to get together with you, but I was there working and my schedule wouldn't allow it. But next time I'm there, I'm going to make it happen.
Okay.
Awesome. I have so many more questions. So
Good.
Thank you again for joining us. And everyone watching, of course, I'm going to link Dr. David James' information below, his website and his newest book. And thank you so much for joining us.